I've been frustrated by challenges associated with anxiety and depression and chronic pain since I was like 12 years old. The people around me, the people that were supposed to be looking out for me didn't know what they were doing. And so as like a 5-year-old, I'm trying to figure it out on my own. I moved 27 times in 21 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
I was searching. At the time, I thought I was being unique and adventuresome. But now I look back and I go, no, I was searching. I was desperate. Desperately searching for some place to belong.
Hi, and welcome to the Living Richly podcast. So great that you've joined us again this week. And I'm real excited about our special guest today, Catherine Fair, who I've known for many years. She's a colleague of mine at Rhapsody Strategies, and it's about time we've got you on the show to share your story. So welcome, Catherine.
Did you know we've known each other for 10 years?
I tell you, I actually would have guessed it to be closer to 12 years, but yeah, at least 10 years.
Yeah, at least
10 years as Rhapsody.
Yeah.
And then, of course, when I was with Eric at Breakthrough Coach, we would have been connected a bit there as well.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but welcome. It's great to have you
Thank
finally
you.
on the
Thank
show.
You very much.
And we're really just going to dive in and want to learn about you and your story. And again, I know that you'll inspire many people. You're a successful business person. You have had incredible success in a number of different industries before you came over to start working with us at Rhapsody and being a part of the coaching team there. You're a master coach now. I mean, you really, you surround yourself with a bunch of guys at work as well, which is, that's worthy
It's an
of a
accomplishment in itself.
Yeah. Maybe just talk.
Debatable whether it's wise or not, but
Right. Yeah,
we're still working on that one.
Exactly. So in some ways, it appears like you just kind of went from one success to the next. But I also know that appearances can be a bit deceiving. Maybe talk about a bit of your journey to where you are now when it comes to just as a businesswoman.
Right. Yeah, it appears. Isn't that a great phrase, right? Illusion.
The illusion of it.
The illusion of having your shit together.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't know how many times I've had people say that to me where it's like, oh yeah, but you just seem like you have your shit together. And I'm thinking, ooh,
right.
Okay, fooled another one.
Yeah.
No, I would not say it's been smooth sailing at all. I've been frustrated by challenges associated with anxiety and depression and chronic pain since I was like 12 years old. So, in every step of my life, whether it was relationships or jobs or friends, meetings, remember how much trouble I had with meetings when we first started together? They were all riddled with things associated with the anxiety and the depression. So yeah, from a pretty early age. And like I remember grade 5, I was diagnosed with a stomach ulcer. I was like 10 years old. Like maybe there's something going on there, yeah. We didn't know what was going on at the time.
Right.
The thing is that as many people who have depression and certainly anxiety, is you can go a long time and not realize that that's what you have, that that's what's going on. And certainly to not know that there's something else, that it can be different.
Yeah.
So how did it show up for you? When you were younger, you talk about, at that young age that came out and you had the anxiety. Did you know at the was it being diagnosed as such early on that you had this? This is now looking back.
Yeah.
So then how was it showing up for you? And what were some of the things that you were thinking or the scripts that you were telling yourself experiencing this without it being understood or diagnosed?
Well, the main one is that I wasn't safe. That the people around me, the people that were supposed to be looking out for me didn't know what they were doing. And so as like a 5-year-old, I'm trying to figure it out on my own. So really, really early having to figure that stuff out on my own. And so it showed up as just not feeling safe.
Mm-hmm.
The other major script was, I am alone. And the other one was, I'm a pain in the ass, which means you got to take care of everything.
Mm-hmm.
So what did that show up as later? I didn't trust anyone. Certainly didn't trust people in a place of authority that were making decisions that were going to affect me. I just didn't trust them.
Yeah.
And so I would come up with my own solution, my own idea about it. And then that's what I would stick to. Unless somebody could give me really super concrete reasons why their way of doing it made more sense.
Mm-hmm.
And then I could switch like that and be, oh, okay, yeah, sure.
So as you kind of move through teen years and then, as you started your career, how did you find that showed up for you? And how did you learn to, I want to say overcome, but also embrace that as you started off your career?
Well, the embracing didn't come until a lot later. During my career, anxiety and depression can so impact your productivity.
Mm-hmm.
And it really did. And most of my career past age 25 was in sales. And it's particularly true in the area of sales because you're self-motivating. Right. It's self-directed employment. You've got to be motivating yourself.
Right.
And you've got these horrible scripts going on in your head and you're beating yourself up and you show up at an appointment and you can't even get out of the car because you've talked yourself into believing that this isn't safe.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. So it was very challenging. But the biggest that I could deal with. The biggest problem I had was in relationships with friends, family, romantic relationships, where, if you're thinking you're a pain in the ass and you're thinking you're alone, think about that for a second. You're in a relationship, I am alone. Therefore, you're kind of this island.
Mm-hmm.
By yourself, and it doesn't make for good connecting with individuals. So whether they're friends or romantic. Looking back, like you said, Rob, it was a struggle.
Yeah, and those scripts, to your point, so let's use the pain in the ass one, right? If you've got a script that is saying that, again, now what we do is, and we know this from a lot of the work we do, we start to look for evidence that that's true. Right. And so let's use a romantic relationship. You're in a romantic relationship where you also believe that you're alone and that you're a pain in the ass. Now you're looking for things and then you're going, see, I'm annoying them. See, and they may be like, you're not. Like, why are you saying that?
Yeah.
And it's
or
like,
that's cute.
No, or that's, exactly. And then you get more defense, right? It's self-prophesy, right? We begin to, we create out of the scripts that we've got, we create scenarios that support and defend the scripts that we believe.
Well, we create our own reality.
100%.
It was very challenging. The anxiety prevented me from doing a lot of things. The chronic pain prevented me from doing a lot of things. I had major knee surgery when I was 13, and it prevented me from being an active teenager when I was an active teenager.
Yeah.
And so I started this other belief of there's a lot I can't do. So, talk about, we've got 4 walls of bad statements about myself or not supportive statements about myself. And I really went through life not realizing that it could be any different than that. It just didn't occur to me. Like it wasn't even in my thoughts that it could be any different than this, that this was it. Or as, what's that movie, As Good as It Gets?
Yes.
This is as good as it gets, But it wasn't until my mom died. So I would have been late 30s at that point, and she had been fighting breast cancer for many years. But it wasn't until that happened that things started to shift. So I had a lot of problems. Even a year after she had died, I was still having problems. So I was lucky enough to have an EAP program through my job. And so I went to 4 sessions with a psychologist. On the last one, she had asked me to do this exercise about memories from when I was younger, and I couldn't do the exercise. And she looked at me and she said, there's this psychiatrist that I'd like you to talk to. And then she said, and this was the part that was really terrifying. She said, here's his phone number. I'd like you to go down to your car. You have a cell phone, right? And I was like, yeah. And I'd like you to call him right now. And I'm thinking, okay, what's wrong with me?
Yeah.
Like, this is scary.
Yeah.
But I went downstairs and I made the call because she asked me to call her back and say whether I'd made the call or not. While I'm driving home, he calls me back. I totally didn't expect that.
Wow.
And then, now I'm just like frozen in my place. But through the work with him, I was able to start to realize some new realities. So I had this illusion about what my family and my upbringing had been, that it had been a normal family, that we had had normal relationships, that my parents had raised us well. It was safe because, we had money, we were middle class, mom and dad never lost their jobs, they weren't separated or divorced. Nobody was beating us or anything silly like that. Like nothing was terrible. So there was this illusion that all was good. But then there was this one day where the psychiatrist said to me, and he would do this to me every once in a while, where just at the end of the appointment, he would give like one comment or question.
Right.
Just before I'm about to leave. And this time he said, I'd been talking about my parents, and he said, completely no emotion or anything, no judgment, nothing. It was just flat. And he says, you're very loyal. And I think my brain broke.
Yeah.
Because I remember leaving there and just kind of going, am I too loyal?
Right.
Should I not be loyal?
What was he meaning by that? Why was he, where
why
was he going with that? For
Because
sure.
he always had some meaning to
Yeah.
it, right?
Yeah, of course.
I would leave those sessions and I would stop at a burger joint, and I don't eat burgers.
Yeah.
And I would get the biggest, greasiest burger I could get on the menu. And I would just gobble that down, drive the rest of the way home, sleep for 2 hours, and then usually cry for a couple of hours. And this happened every Thursday for years.
No.
I did that for 4 or 5 years, I think. But I made progress.
Yeah. So this is, like you say, you're in your 30s at this point. You've got a career going on. How are you balancing out doing the, working through some of those personal things and showing up now? I'm not sure where you would have been working at that point, but showing up in your place of employment and being the strong, independent woman.
Right.
How are you balancing out those two things?
The job was, again, self-directed employment.
Right.
I was on the road all the time. I rarely was around my colleagues. So we would have sales meetings every quarter, and that's when we would all see each other. But on the road, it was just the people.
There was the safety. You were alone.
Yeah, that's right. And it was safe, wasn't it? Yeah. So that's how I dealt with that. But I got to say, during that time, I've never been so happy to be single. Because I could come home and I could process and I could cry and I could do whatever it is I needed to do in the moment to process what was happening, because a lot was happening. And it was like really significant.
Yeah. What was your biggest aha moment during that season?
Ooh,
I know there's probably a lot. But you said there's a lot happening, but maybe just for the, if you were to summarize it, what would be the big aha moment there?
The biggie was that my life up to that point had been an illusion. And so I think what was so taking up all that energy was that I would go home and I'd have to put all of my memories through a new filter. And I'd get a new filter almost every week. So it was exhausting. I mean, it was very, very tiring work. It was hard work.
Yeah.
But it was rewarding as all hell. Like, I would recommend it to anybody, no matter how scared you are or how many preconceptions you have about getting that kind of help. Can't recommend it enough, you know? So, yeah. So for me, it was really just dealing with this whole new reality that showed up. New, and I like to call it the new illusion. Right. Because now I'm creating yet another one.
Right. Yeah.
And that one I get to create. So the first one I had no control over. The second one, it was kind of shoved down my throat. But the new one that I'm creating now is yours, is mine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. It's like an evolution of illusions.
Yeah.
Let's shift gears a little bit and just, talk a little bit about your career path, because I think it's fascinating, especially just from a female perspective.
Yeah. Right.
So the last 2 jobs you had before joining Rhapsody were in sales. You worked for a pharmaceutical company and then the Canadian Federation of Independent Businesses. So talking a little bit about what it was like as a woman working sales in 2 very strong industries that have a lot of male focus or male dominance.
So what's interesting about that is that, so the first pharmaceutical company I worked for, that was true. It was male dominated. So of the team of 20, I think there were only 2 of us that were female. But we were the top performers. And that was happening throughout the industry at that time. And this is in the 90s at this point. And the pharmaceutical companies know how to make money. Okay. If there's anything they know, they know how to make money.
Yeah.
So when they see something like that and they see a pattern, they're like, what's that all about? When I returned to the industry, so I was in the industry for 5 years, then I went to Banff for 3 years, now for something completely different. And then I came back. By then, the industry had made this major shift, and it was the opposite. I think on the team of 40, there were 3 guys, maybe 5. Yeah, so it had been like a flip-flop, total turnaround.
Okay.
Still, a lot of the managers were male.
Right. Yeah.
And, but they had incredible training programs for them. So again, lucky, because the managers were taught how to deal with that. So that was great. CFIB, it was 50-50 in terms of who was showing up for those roles. So I personally have never experienced misogyny in my working roles. And again, I considered myself lucky, or I'm a steamroller and I just walk in and I don't notice and don't care. I'm not sure. But either way, I know a lot of women experience that, whether it's a male-dominated experience or not, right? It could be just their one boss and it's all women. But me personally, no, I haven't.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is interesting. And you're right. We've had some conversations around diversity and equality, even as a team at Rhapsody over the last little while. And you shared some of that in the context there. And, I wonder sometimes, I love how you said that second part. It's not, maybe you did actually, maybe it was all around you. You were just not responding to it or acknowledging it. And so you were just kind of moving, kind of along through that. But you were successful in these roles. And we often at Rhapsody here with Living Richly on the podcast, we often talk about when people make that shift into the entrepreneur, makes that shift and kind of, okay, here we go. you made a shift from doing that into coaching, and had that conversation, I think, with Eric, was
Eric and Trevor.
Yeah, with Eric and Trevor at the beginning. But you had that conversation around, making this shift. What was that like to kind of make that adjustment? And at the time, did it tie in at all to you reinventing yourself again?
Well, it was tied, like those scripts that I talked about were very, very prevalent through that time. The transition was somewhat seamless for me because an awful lot of my CFIB clients became my coaching clients. I already had trust and those relationships.
Pool, yeah.
Yeah. And so that portion of it was seamless. I didn't really feel like I had shifted jobs because I was already doing unofficial coaching with my CFIB clients. But where the real challenges rose for me, what was going on up here, right? I'm still alone. I'm still a pain in the ass. I still don't deserve. And, all of those scripts were still there. And so I had to work through. And anytime you shift jobs, you go through that. Like you're a big man on the totem pole, right? And then you come in and you're like, I know nothing.
Right. Yes.
Right?
Why did they hire me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's always that. But for me, I just kept working through what I had always worked through. Except when you're coaching somebody and you're giving them tools to work on, or you're asking them questions, and I've said this many times at Rhapsody, is I don't know who's getting more out of it,
right?
Me or them, because if I ask something of one of my clients, in all good conscience, I can't ask it of them unless I'm willing to do it myself. So the growth was logarithmic as a coach. And I think you guys would all of you, the coaches at Rhapsody, would agree that that was the case. So through that's where my real growth happened. And that's where I've finally been able to recognize the conversations that were happening, recognize that I had control over it. Like at this point, I would say depression's gone, never coming back. I have control over that. I might have blue moments, but I know what to ask myself. I know what to say to myself. I know what to challenge myself on so that I can move forward and through it. Where before I would just get stuck there because I didn't even know what to say to myself because I believed everything that I was saying.
Right.
Now I challenge it.
But I love that you share that because a lot of people, I think, feel stuck and don't know how to get unstuck.
Yeah.
But I think that you sharing just the years of work that you've done is just such a great testament to so many people who are on the journey who, in my opinion, give up very quickly because they feel like they're not seeing results or getting traction, or it's just, never ending. But kind of hearing you in the space that you're in today is just, I think, very inspiring for many people still walking that path where it's okay to still have those blue moments and recognizing the difference between where you were and what you've been through and where you are now, and still navigating through that, but in a place where you're recognizing that it's not what it was before.
Well, and for those people that they don't get the results that they're looking for, and so they stop, that's actually a really important thing to recognize, because like when I left for university, I moved 27 times in 21 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
I was searching. At the time, I thought I was being unique and adventuresome. Right. But now I look back and I go, no, I was searching. I was desperate. Desperately searching for some place to belong, right? To belong. And what also happened during that time was I realized that, in retrospect, that if something didn't work, I simply wasn't willing to live that way. Absolutely no way am I settling for this. I refused to settle for it. I refused that this was as good as it got.
Yeah.
And I would just keep looking. And I tried all kinds of things. One of the best things that happened to me was going to women's business connections and meeting all these different women. And a lot of them were in the healthcare, not healthcare, but healing industries. And so I got exposed to a bunch of things I would have known existed, right? So the healing arts, right? And so I was able to try a bunch of those things too. And it's like going to training seminars. You can go, if you've been going for 20 years, you know darn well that the training seminar you're going to isn't going to rock your world. But you might get one thing out of that and take it with you. And that's what was happening all those years. All those people I met and all the things I tried, I was getting one thing at least out of each of them. The real drinking from the fire hose came when I became a coach.
Yeah, it does. I love that the notion of curiosity. We had Jesse White on the show last week, and he talked about that being one of his core values, which of course resonates for Eric, because it's one of Eric's as well. And that deep curiosity is a value that we hold to even at Rhapsody, is this notion of just asking the powerful questions and wanting to learn and to grow. And it does. I love that you talk about it, and I see that in you, certainly in how you live life. You're a questioner, and in asking questions, when the script is there that I'm a pain in the ass, the questions can, are the questions to trigger that, or are they curious questions because you want to grow and learn? And I think for you, for the most part, I want to learn and grow. And it's taking that in and being able to say, I'm so open to discover. So many people who live life so closed into, with the blinders on as to what it is that they believe, and they're just not willing to be, I can explore this, and no, I don't buy that, or but just to be willing to do the exploration, for many people, they don't, and then they lose the opportunity to have all these experiences.
Well, even to embrace the micro changes along the way.
Yes,
a lot of times people are focusing on something like some big revolution or some big mind-blowing transformation, but
that's another illusion.
Having that patience along the way to take little pieces here and there, I see them as all just micro changes that then evolve into, who we end up being or who you are today.
Yeah. Love that, micro changes, because that's what it is.
Yeah. So you become a coach. You're working with the most amazing, wonderful, me, and then Eric. And
sorry, Catherine.
And the rest of them. Yeah. No.
Well, Steve.
Steve's pretty good. Steve's good.
Hey, not that Steve.
Not you. It's Steve, who's also been on the show as well. And but you got this team and of people wanting to learn and grow. One of the common themes that we address on the show, and we're going to be doing actually a full episode on this coming up, is imposter syndrome.
Ooh, yeah.
What was there any of that, and how is that showing up for you as you start into this career where you're literally guiding business owners on how to have successful businesses, how to run teams, how to all of the things that we do at Rhapsody? How was it, and if so, how was it showing up, imposter syndrome?
Yeah, I love how you said, how was it showing up? And I'm thinking, you mean, how is it showing up?
Right.
It still does, right?
Yeah.
Good point.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things that helped me the most was that I would sit across from somebody who was experiencing imposter syndrome, and I could see their potential. Like I could see it plain as the day, right? And I would explain to them their worth and how wonderful they were and how much they had to offer. And I would be that person giving them that. And I would say to myself, gosh, I wish I had somebody that did this to me. I want a Catherine talking to me. Right. And then it was like, wait a minute.
I've got one.
I've got one of those. Yeah. So, for sure, imposter syndrome, for sure. And we've all experienced it. But I remember the key there was that I didn't have to have solutions. I didn't have to be the greatest coach in the world. I just had to be curious, reserve judgment, and ask a lot of questions. And we sometimes joke about how as coaches, we are questionologists, and that the great questions make all the difference in the world, and that is what would stabilize me when I had those moments. And I still have them.
Yeah,
I absolutely still have them. I still have anxiety. I was anxious coming here today. They're still there. Mm-hmm. It's just we know how to have the conversation with ourselves now.
Right. And you probably recognize the signs more than historically, where we start to recognize, okay, I know this feeling, but now I know how to navigate through that.
Yeah.
Whereas usually at the beginning, especially when we're younger, we don't know. So it's almost like a fight or flight. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. And so now we've been doing some pretty heavy lifting at Rhapsody. Certainly, as we work with, Dr. Sherry, who's been on the show. We worked with with Jim, who's and Jim Harrington, who's also been on the show. We've been doing a lot of that inner work. Talk about some of the work that you're doing in your life today to how are you coaching Catherine, on some of the things that you're learning that apply to those scripts that you held on to for so long. So how is that being rewritten using the lessons you're learning today?
Well, I can't emphasize enough that getting help is, I just can't emphasize that enough. And it comes in many, many different forms. So, I mean, I'm sure the audience has heard Dr. Sherry this and Dr. Sherry that, and Dr. Sherry, and there's a reason why we basically worship her, is because she has helped us so much. So I continue to use her services. And sometimes it's talking about really difficult stuff. And sometimes we're talking about where we're traveling to and what we're doing. And that's all it is. And that's okay. Mm-hmm. But continue with that work. And the biggie is that challenging my own thoughts. Mm. Because before, what used to happen is the thoughts would happen and I'd try and control them.
Mm. Right.
And that's tiring because
it's exhausting.
They're strong, right? They wrestle you to the ground. And so I would be exhausted from all these arguments that were going on in my head, and I would try and control them and stop them. Now it's just a conversation, and it's a gentle conversation. Mm. I've had to realize that all the stuff that's going on up here that may or may not be negative is actually a younger version of me protecting me, but with poor information. Mm. And so my role as the adult is to inform her that I don't need that anymore. That we have better ways to do that now.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so that is learning to have that conversation and be kind while you have it. Because up until very recently, that was a kind of, let's beat the crap out of yourself because you're still not behaving. You're still not thinking the way I want you to think.
Right.
And so now it's just a very gentle conversation.
Well, and it sounds like over time that growth of compassion for yourself, which I think is such you say that to me, often, have some compassion for yourself, which is easier said than done. But I think just like hearing you talk about your journey over time and over the years, I think it's just such a great message for so many people that it's such a learned behavior. Yeah. And it's something that you have to continue practicing. Mm-hmm. We're so much easier to be kind and compassionate and gracious to everybody else, but always very difficult when it comes to ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we like to use the language, and I think Eric probably coined it, at least from at the Living Richly table, but is the radical self. acceptance or
Right.
self-compassion, right?
Yeah.
This notion of it's not just about accepting yourself and who you are. It's that radical self-acceptance it just takes it to another level when we use that language. And I think the only way you can truly show up authentically in the day-to-day of whatever you're doing in the way of coaching or whatever is by so radically embracing who we are that we don't need to show up as anyone else in front of client. So we don't need to be someone we're not. We don't need to. I am so comfortable with clients now being able to, when they say, oh, I'm struggling with that, I can say, yeah, me too. Like, let's talk about that because, right? And to your point, I don't have to have answers. I don't have to have, I guide and I help, it's through the questions. It's guiding and bringing ideas and principles to people, but it's coming into this and just being, I can just be me in that context, which is so refreshing and is completely contrary to certainly 90% of my time here on earth, where I've always tried to be someone else. And it sounds like that's kind of what you're working through. We all of us do. I think everyone does.
Yeah. And in coaching, and you already know this, Rob, but in coaching, just showing up is half the help.
Right.
Like, and, so because of my own self-talk about I am alone, I feel so strongly about being there for my clients. Like, it's a passion for me that it is important to them as well. I'm here. Don't worry.
Yeah.
You're not alone. We're going to do this together.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm going to be here with you every step of the way.
Right.
And like, it's really important to me that they know that they're not alone, because I know what it feels like to be alone or to think I'm alone.
You're one of the first people that introduced to me the battle with seasonal depression.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember us having conversations probably 7 years ago. At that point, you were buying, I think, a light, right? A daylight. Talk to, what was that journey like, kind of discovering that? How have you been managing that? I know you talked already about with depression and how you've reframed the questions and the control that it has over you. Is that applies with the seasonal depression? What has that been like?
It does. So seasonal affective disorder, SAD, which ironically I used to sell medication for
Right.
as a pharmaceutical rep. Seasonal affective disorder in the Ottawa area can start anywhere between September and January.
Right.
And so I moved to Ottawa after living in Toronto for, 25 years. I moved back to Ottawa, and the seasonal affective disorder hit me like a brick wall. And I also found I gained weight. I also found I drank more. And I also found that I was late for things. There was these bunch of things that all happened at the same time. And it took me a while to realize that what it was seasonal affective disorder. And so, I got this light at the time. It was called a Yuma light, YUMA, not available anymore. Sorry, folks. But it was fantastic. It was a visor, and I could wear it in the morning another time I was glad I was single.
Yes.
I could wear it in the morning while I was getting my coffee and my breakfast and watching TV. It didn't matter, right? I could wear it for whatever minutes it was necessary for. And so that really helped. But it was recognizing that that's what was happening that needed me to go, okay, I got to go find myself a new solution.
Yeah.
So there's a solution out there. Damn it, I'm going to find it. And so that was one of them. But it was also, and I remember how many conversations you and I would have. And the first thing you would ask is, are you drinking enough water?
Right.
Are you getting enough sleep? Are you staying away from alcohol? Those were the three biggies. And they were always good reminders of self-care. Self-care, and knowing that you were worth it.
Yeah, you're a big proponent of that.
Yeah, and it's things like that. Even though we hear it, we know it. Those are always the things that are easy to do, but so much easier not to do.
Right.
It's like stretching. I say to my clients and my members all the time. When people are complaining about, well, this is sore. If I had a penny for every time somebody said my hips, my knees, my shoulders, all of this thing, are you stretching? Well, easy to do, but easier not to do. So those things like drinking water, getting enough sleep, are we turning our phones off early enough to actually go to bed? What are we, are we drinking? So much easier to just put it out of sight and instead of actually focusing on the small things. Yeah.
The other thing to remember too is that it like, especially the time with the psychiatrist in Toronto, it was hard.
Yeah.
But just because it's hard doesn't mean it can't be beautiful. Like I can't think of anything I'm more proud of than that time I spent there. And, we had a horrific situation with my family where my nephew disappeared for 2 weeks, and we searched for him. We had search parties going every day all over Toronto. There were posters up everywhere. And on the Saturday, unfortunately, he showed up, or we found him. And on the Monday, a gal who had gone to school with him had posted that she was at the subway on Monday morning, standing there with everybody else, and all the posts still had the missing persons alert. And she said she started crying, and she walked up to the post and she like reverently removed the post very, very carefully. And she turned and she looked over, and somebody was at each of the other posts doing the same thing, and across on the other subway platform doing the same thing. And it was this moment of a city the size of Toronto, complete strangers, coming together over this realization. And I remember being so struck by that. In fact, I put it in the eulogy, and she came up to me afterwards, and she thanked me for talking about it. But for me, it was that moment of feeling this massive sense of community and support, and I'm not alone. And it was one of the single most beautiful moments of my life to visualize what she had done, right? Where she was, not me, but visualize what she had experienced. And you can have terrible, terrible things happen to you. Like my mother dying, I have a plaque that says, "In search of my mother's garden, I found my own."
Right.
And to this day, I tear up when I see it. It still means the world to me. And those are beautiful, beautiful things that you can take with you.
Yeah.
So did it suck? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Would I wish this on anybody? No.
Yeah.
Would I do it any differently? I'm not sure I would.
Yeah.
It's kind of what crafts us as, all that, it's part of the journey, our footsteps and our footprints are so different as we create our own journey. But then when we look back at all of the lessons and how they have formed us over the years and created, uniquely who we are as humans. I love how you shared that, just having that as part of the journey.
I love that language, and I'm going to steal it. I'm going to make it my own. Is the notion of it can be hard and can be beautiful. And the idea, we often think of hard as bad, right? Hard, but it's really hard. And we use it as a negative. And it can be hard, and it can also be very beautiful. And I do think of that. I think of the experiences as all of us have gone through those hard moments. And as you begin to, whatever you experience out of that, the beauty of it for sure. Absolutely. I think that's gold. That's such a great line and great phrase. And I'm going to have to take that one and steal it. Go ahead. Jump in.
The word terrible.
You're right.
Its origins isn't negative. It means awesome.
Yeah.
Like awe-inspiring.
Right. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
And it's used in the Bible.
Look at you.
I know. Look at me
tell
talking
me
about the
what the Bible says.
And in the Bible, they use the word terrible as a positive, not like as an awesome thing, not a terrible thing. And So that's what I thought of.
Yeah.
All through Shane's disappearance. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, we're almost out of time here. These conversations are always so wonderful. We like to ask people when they come on the show, we always have kind of a closing question that we want to hear from. And for you, so what does living richly mean to you?
Living richly, it's so tied into curiosity, being curious. I have never been bored in my life, like ever. I've never had a bored moment in my life. And I attribute that to I'm always curious. There's always something else to do or learn or read or ask or look at or look closer at. So I to me, curiosity is paramount to living richly.
Right.
Because when you stop being curious, that's when you get stuck. That's when you get depressed. That's when you lose hope. Yeah. That's when the future looks bleak. So yeah, curiosity. Absolutely.
I love that. I love that. I love the notion of wonder as well that comes into that, right? To be in wonder of things. How can people, if you want to reach out to you, what people want to connect to you, what's the best way? We're going to put all the links in the show notes for your LinkedIn and your email and website.
And I'd love to hear from you if you have any comments, if you're going through any of what, any of what I went through, please don't do it alone.
Yeah.
Please, please, please don't do it alone. Reach out to me. You can go through the Rhapsody website. My email is there. And any comments you have about today, I'd love to hear them.
Yeah, and of course, we encourage you to do exactly that. We always want you to like, to share, to add your comments. If you or someone you know is maybe worked through and dealing with some of the same things that Catherine has shared, what a great opportunity, a gift you can do for them is to just share the episode with them and let them know about it and introduce them to the podcast and all that we're doing. I want to encourage you to check out our website, livingrichly.me. You will see some information there around our 15-day challenge that we're developing, as well as links to our Facebook group. It's a great place to build community. Catherine mentioned a couple of times about the notion of not doing this alone, and I really do believe that there is a community of people who are ready to take this journey with you, and you can find that many of them on our Facebook page, so I encourage you to do that as well. Thank you so much, Catherine, for being a part of this story today and this journey. Thank you all for taking the time to listen, and we look forward to having you back again next week.